often there is great work that is happening in terms of providing for basic needs and social services within communities being done by Black churches, but that hasn't quite gotten the recognition or the attention from large institutional philanthropy. When we did our research and looking at it, the reality is that large institutional philanthropy is often sort of ignored faith-based organizations, and particularly the Black church. When we calculated it, only 2% of giving from the 15 largest foundations actually went to faith-based organizations. You know, that's a tiny drop in the bucket, even though 1/3 of all personal philanthropy in this country actually goes to congregations. And so there's something about the disconnect in terms of the perception of the work that the Black church is doing, or Black churches rather, are doing within communities to actually enable uplift and support that is creating that divide. And so part of what we're trying to do is sort of bridge that divide and actually elevate and highlight examples of amazing work that's happening on the ground. But I do want to take a sort of step back and think about, like, what is that positioning of the Black church in terms of its role? Because, you know, it is about being an effective steward for resources and not extractive, but then putting in that broader context of the question of reparations, we have to understand and recognize that when you're talking about philanthropy in the context of reparations, you're actually talking about the sense that, like, that wealth was accumulated from unjust systems that enabled that accumulation in the first place. And so large institutional philanthropy, particularly when we're seeing a large turn toward questions of racial equity and racial justice and their explicit commitments that have been made, in a lot of ways means that they are starting to finally understand and begin to sort of see the light and the possibility of what disproportionate investment in communities of color should mean, not only from the perspective of achieving social progress, which is their particular goal, but actually rectifying our nation's collective sins with regard to the valuing of Black lives and Black labor. And so in a certain way, I think that the current moment is actually quite primed for a much more robust and rich dialogue on where are those places of intersection, where are the ways in which a version of racial equity means investing in strong, trusted institutions within communities of color like Black churches. It means supporting building power and organizing within those communities. It means knowledge sharing and building partnerships with organizations that actually have reach within communities to provide for basic needs, to demonstrate models of fellowship and community that offer social safety net within those communities. And so while this historical period of a bit of a drift has happened, I think that the antecedents of the Black church are a very rich tradition that can be drawn upon as a means and mechanism for being able to support progress. But it has to be done in a way that is framed around our collective uplift. It has to be oriented around a version or a sense of love that is about a beloved community, rather than a sense of pointing to and highlighting the sins of individuals. And so it's when we turn to that frame and we move to that sense of collective uplift that I think that there's a strong sort of sense of the potential for overlap in terms of the goals that are there and a much broader and stronger coalition that could come about.